Welcome everyone. We are now awaiting the very first official solo finals of the KDL. My name is William Cho, joined by Peter tonight to bring you the first finals. And we now have just 8 racers left here in the KDL solos.
Yeah, this is the moment that we've all been waiting for, William. We have so many solos this season around, and we got the most top 8 packed rosters now.
Yeah, I mean, once we take a look at all the names, I think if you've been watching any part of Kart Rider or the KDL, these are all names you're going to be very familiar with, even if you missed some of the races here during the first official season. But quite frankly, I mean, first of all, the big storyline here is whoever wins, they're going to be the only one that can take the title of first KDL champion, right? So that's going to be a very honored title that all these racers are going to be fighting for. And of course, you know, along with that comes a big chunk of that prize money.
And of course, now in the solo match finals, we are racing to the 80 points. So first 80 points will be moving on along with the second place to set 2 to face off in a one-on-one best-of-5 match. And along with that, we will no longer have the 3 consecutive wins where if a player gets first place 3 times in a row, the race is over.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a race to the very end. You got to get to the 80 points, and then you have to be in the top 2 at that point, and then face off in a 1v1 once again. We can see here the 4 players that came right on through the winners match. It's going to be Cool, NEAL, Knock, and Hero. We're actually going to have double Mira and Sejong players there in the top 4. And then the bottom 4 who came through the very final round of the round of 16 is Luning, HoJun, SUNGBIN, and JiMin. So all very familiar racers when it comes to these finals.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of these players we have already seen in the solo finals in the previous seasons. And now, as we take a look at the predictions coming in for our players today, I am not too surprised to see an overwhelming favoritism being placed on Cool.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he got, what, the 3 in a row wins twice during the round of 16. I mean, he absolutely dominated, so there's no big surprise there. NEAL, he's always been a favorite here in the finals. He's actually made it to the finals every time in the preseasons. And then HoJun, I mean, not only does he have the reputation in the fan base, but the fact that he is able to redeem himself to get to his first very final 8 of the KDL going to be very impressive. But again, I don't think it's going to be too shocking if any of these racers win. However, that just goes to show the fans kind of where they're heavily leaning towards, and Cool is going to be the heavy favorite tonight.
Just as you said, Will, every single 8 player here really earned their way forward, especially a player like Luning, who managed to upset all expectations and become the preseason 2 solos champions. He's there too. We can't forget about him.
Yeah, of course. We'll take a closer look at each of the racers. First up, it's going to be the racer in orange. It's going to be JiMin. All right, so we have some highlights from each of the racers prepared here, and this is going to be a big one coming in from JiMin. You can see that it was from the round of 16 in the final match, and without that first place, he might not have been able to actually edge his way in here to the orange stripes, barely making it in to the final top 8.
JiMin is definitely a regular here in the KDL as far as solo finals go, and you can see he's, just as you put it, just 1 point ahead of Byung-Soo there in that round of 16 final match. So the question is, will JiMin be able to overperform? Because right now it seems like he's going to need to pull out his best form to win today.
Yeah, I mean, he does have, you know, a lot of collisions with the track, as we can see. You can just see that he's constantly kind of in the midst of all these crashes and these bumps along the tracks. So he doesn't have the cleanest races, but somehow he's able to still edge it into these finals every time. He's one of the 3 racers, like you mentioned, that makes to the final top 8 in all of the preseasons and this first very official season. We'll see how that goes, but next up, it's going to be the racer in blue, and it's going to be SUNGBIN. Now, if anything, I think it's a bit surprising that he is at such a bottom of the ranks here in the top 8.
SUNGBIN has definitely been a key member of Guangdong Freaks, who's been having so much success throughout the KDL season, and you can see it just being shown by his races in the Group B of round of 32. In round 1, 2, and 3, he's been able to be really consistent throughout it all.
Yeah, he was actually the closest one to getting that first 3 in a row and ending the race early. Of course, Spec actually ruined that goal early on, and if that had happened, so much would have changed. Hero would have been absolutely eliminated from the round of 32. I mean, so many players' destinies would have changed, so SUNGBIN not able to take that title for himself. However, of course, that just goes to show that he is always going to be a strong racer, even though he's currently ranked 7th in the blue stripes here for the final top 8, you cannot count this guy out. I mean, he's also one of those racers, on the Guangdong Freaks that's always willing to go into those ace matches. He's very confident in these 1v1s or free-for-alls.
Yeah, definitely a well-deserved spot here for SUNGBIN. And next up, our racer is going to be HoJun, the green racer. And back in Forest Zigzag Timberland in round 2 of Group D, he was able to showcase why this is the veteran of kart rider that we keep referencing, that basically the Emperor is back here in KDL.
Yeah, and it's quite impressive. I mean, let's take a look at this guy's records all throughout his entire career. He continues to hold the youngest champion, which quite frankly, I don't think is even possible anymore just because of different age restrictions now in esports. But he won his very first title when he was 9 years old. And now, 17 years later, he's trying to compete to become the potentially oldest player to ever take the title. Currently, NEAL holds that at 24 years old and 42 days. But HoJun, I mean, he's well above that now. And on top of that, I mean, he continues to hold, the most trophies, the most titles. He, has one of the first double trophies, right? Winning both solos and teams and things like that. And the fact that he's returned after coaching, right? And after helping build some teams, after bringing up a lot of the younger talent like Hero on his current team of Mira and Sejong, he now returns to form and say, this is going to be my first foray back into the final top 8 of a solos. It's going to be the first official season of the KDL. I'm here to take another crown. Very curious to see how he's able to perform. Now, next up, of course, we have Luning coming in the purple stripes.
Luning has had such a fantastic year, and already here in the final match, round 5 of round of 16, he was able to showcase a really clutch racing here in World Tour Miami Drive. You can see the excellent line choice by him, completely having a read on his opponents, allowed him to get that first place.
Yeah, I think Luning, obviously coming off of the preseason 2 victory and taking that title in the solos, right, edging out NEAL in the final 1v1, and then continue to actually have great performances in the team matches here in the very first season of the KDL. If anything, it's actually a little bit disappointing, his record so far here in the solos. I mean, sure, he eventually still gets another 3 consecutive first places, so he holds that title as well, but it really came to fruition quite late, right into the round of 16, into the final match. So curious to see, can he now get back into form, right? The team matches are behind him. They have now been eliminated as a team, so that's unfortunate, but hopefully he can focus all his energy on tonight and bring back that form we saw in preseason 2. And it's going to be tough because he has opponents coming up in the top 4, starting with the white stripes. It's going to be the likes of Hero from Mira and Sejong.
Hero, this is a player that we always know for being the runner for the team, always being able to clutch in that first place. And on a track like Village Boom Hill Tunnel, it can get really tricky, especially as you try to maneuver around your opponent's collisions. But Hero, man, he just makes it look so easy.
Yeah, I mean, Hero's a racer that we constantly praise. We constantly talk about just when he's able to race his own style, his own builds, his own time, he will continue to shine above all else. So now, that it is solos. Sure, sometimes it's a bit more hectic, but hopefully he can really find his own builds. If he can get ahead, I mean, you see it there. He's one of the only racers that has that record of finishing in first place with 0 drafts. He basically held first place from the beginning to the end on one of the races he had during the redemption match in round 3 from the round of 32. So once he got that second chance, he's really been able to rise towards the top here into the top 4. Alongside, actually, one of his other teammates, it's going to be Knock coming in the red stripes here from Mira and Sejong as well.
And as we can see here, it was back in WKC Shanghai circuit that we got to see a little bit of Nox's playstyle. He's usually the sweeper for his team, but when needed, he's able to just show up and get the high place finishes, like right there. He just manages to pass 3 players out of nowhere, and that was such a crucial moment for him.
Yeah, and Nox, I mean, again, he just continues to hold that title of his career of going for that pension meta, even in a world where we had the threat of the 3 consecutive wins. Not a racer we mentioned too often in the highlights, but he's able to constantly get these podium finishes, get enough points to now make it into the top 3 of the very first finals of the KDL solo races. So absolutely impressive showing. However, we always say when it comes to the 80 points to get into the top 2, and then you have to go into a 1v1, just going for that pension meta, not going to be your strong suit anymore.
Yeah, that's going to be the test for Nox here, but of course his next opponent is going to be NEAL in the black stripes.
NEAL, I mean, this guy, he continued to reach the finals of both preseasons, making it into the 1v1s as well. And we can see there, I mean, that's one of the famous NEAL builds, taking the inner side of that cogwheel. He continued to show that once again here in the KDL. And the fact that he got runner-up twice in a row, while you know, some might say it's unfortunate. That also goes to show that he's been very, very consistent here in the solos of the KDL.
And on top of that, NEAL managed to get 0 drafts, first place finishes twice, which is pretty impressive because I feel like Hero is the player that suits this playstyle most. But NEAL, we can see so many different adaptations by him, sometimes going for these runner styles, and sometimes he'll just stay in the back and catch up with the NEAL builds.
Yeah, I mean, especially on tracks like Snowbound Slopes and Facility 5, that's not an easy feat. But last but not least, we have one racer left to introduce to you tonight, and it's going to be Cool from the Guangdong Freaks coming in with the gold stripes.
Oh man, this was such a hype moment for Cool. I remember this one in Village Boom Tunnel. He starts out with a beautiful spin, excellently executed there, and then he just needs to maintain enough distance from NEAL, and a player like that, it's tough, but Cool pulled it off. Yeah,
while Cool already has quite a storied career of his own as well, this might be some of the best stats we've seen from him, right? I mean, he gets 3 consecutive win finishes in the round of 16, both in the first match and then in the winner's match as well, ending the race early before anyone is able to get to 50 points. He is also, of course, one of the racers who has that champion title from the preseasons. He was able to win preseason 1, start his KDL career on a good foot. However, what really matters is once these official seasons start, can you take that title once again of being the first ever solo champion of the KDL? I mean, I think if anyone wants it the most, it's got to be Cool because he won that preseason 1 title.
Yeah, it was definitely disappointing for Cool in preseason 2 to not make it to that set 2 where he can play 1v1, which we can say is kind of where he shines. So this time around, given the form that Cool's had, we can definitely say he's had the highest road coming up here, so we have a lot of expectations for him.
Yeah, so we just took a quick look at all 8 racers that are preparing for the race tonight. Once again, it's just the solos tonight, but it's the first to 80 points, and then it comes down to a final 1v1 of the top 2 racers. We'll be bringing you the first ever solo finals right after this break when we kick off with the opening ceremony.
Yeah, they tried to call me mad. Yeah, they say I'm a maniac. They try to give me the same, but I just want the new thing. I just want the new thing. Oh, don't tell me to be cool. Don't wanna hear about no rules. I gotta get it my way. Don't try to give me the same, 'cause I just want the new thing.
mouth, better add it with spit. Otherwise, pressure gon' be at your neck when I burn you like. This ain't a game, my aim is the throne. I'm much higher than you, like a rocket, a drone. I'm powerful, think of a stone. Throw it off of my brain and I'm bad to the bone.
The final race to glory awaits us as we prepare for the very first KDL solo finals tonight. 8 racers awaiting to become the very first champion. And of course, that also means that all 8 racers have that chance to become a royal roader of the KDL, as it is our very inaugural season. Who will be taking that honor and who will be taking that title tonight? We await to find out, as we will be inviting each of the racers one by one, beginning with JiMin in the orange stripes.
Man, I'm so excited to see JiMin here in the solos finals. He's been here for the 3rd time this year already. The fans know him as the acrobat of tracks. He went from being the item ace for Live Sandbox to a hybrid now. The question is, can he get that solos champion title finally?
Yeah, he may have been able to cause all that chaos in all the rounds prior. However, tonight he's going to have to make his own path forward if he wants a shot at lifting that trophy and becoming the inaugural champion of the KDL. And awaiting him are 7 other racers, all with their own records. Next up, it's going to be SUNGBIN from the Guangdong Freaks, coming in blue.
SUNGBIN, he's been here in preseason 2 in the top 8 solos. He was there, now he's back for some more action in the solos, and he's known as a sweeper of Guangdong Freaks. But not only that, he's very consistent with his playstyle. His fans, they love calling him the apex predator of KDL, and now the question is, can he be that predator of the solos?
Yeah, just 7 other racers on the same track as himself. He was so close to becoming the first racer to get those 3 consecutive wins. That is no longer possible tonight. However, if he can get to those 80 points, he will be going into that 1v1 against his final prey. Next up, coming in the green stripes, it's going to be the legend and the emperor himself from Miran Sejong. It's HoJun.
HoJun is a player that is simply the most decorated player that we have in the whole entire Kart Rider Drift League. He has 3 consecutive solos champion titles in Kart Rider, 2 champion titles in the same year, and like you put it, he has 14 victories in his pocket of the Kart Rider League. Now looking to add a Kart Rider Drift League win in the solos finals here.
Yeah, a lot of people looked at him during the preseason and said, I don't know if he still has what it takes to compete in the solos, maybe in the teams, but he comes back strong in the very first official season, trying to prove everybody wrong, climbing his way right back in to the final 8. Alongside him, coming in from the final match of the round of 16, it is going to be Luning from Seongnam Rocks, coming in purple.
Luning is none other than the solos champion himself from preseason 2. Now here to defend his title, he's fought hard, and as you put it, Will, he's had a bit of a rough season, but he's now known as the giant of solos, and now this is the player that all 7 other racers have to challenge for that title.
Yeah, I will say he was also the only racer so far that wasn't scared by all the props we have on stage, right? All the fireworks and all the pompous and circumstance. So he does seem to have his cool ready to go. Now going into the top 4 racers racers that came in from the winners match of the round of 16. First up, coming in the white stripes, it's going to be Hero.
Hero has had such a great year as far as kart rider went in 2022. He was the Royal Roader. So much attention was on this player. Like, who is this guy? How does he be so good on his first year of debuting? But now he's once again having his first year here in the KDL, and it's a question of can he get that second title of Royal Roader as well?
Yeah, I mean, you were able to do it when you first entered the scene that everyone else had already paved the way for in the original Kart Rider League, but now can you do it when everyone is on even footing in the KDL? We find out as we continue to look at the rest of his opponents. Next up, another teammate from Mira and Sejong coming in the red stripes. It's going to be Nok.
Nok is up here with his teammate, just as you put it. 3 players from Mira and Sejong in the solos finals tonight. That is super exciting, and Nok is a player we know for being so stable, and the question is, can he be stable enough to get into top 2, not just top 4 this time? Well, he's the super observer of KDL, so I believe in this guy.
Yeah, you're gonna have to just edge a couple more spots into the podium if you want that top 2 finish. Even if you don't get the 80 points, you want to be right there, right behind them if you want to enter the final 1v1. However, talk about the final 1v1s. It's going to be the favorite to enter the final 2 racers. It's going to be NEAL from Live Sandbox.
NEAL, this is the player that we all know and love as the global superstar here in the KDL. He is challenging for his 3rd Royal Roader this season around. He's got 2 solo grand finals appearance already this year, 2 runner-up finishes. Not as decorative as NEAL would like, so maybe this time he can get that solos finals champion title.
NEAL, he let it slip away so close both times in the preseason. He was actually the one to get the 80 points both times in the preseasons. We'll see if he's able to continue that feat. However, one of his other opponents from preseason 1, and this time with such a storied record, 3 consecutive wins in a row in the round of 16, ending the races early, demolishing his opponents. It's going to be Cool from the Guangdong Freaks.
Cool. He's won that preseason 1 in the solos. He's already proven himself just by the record alone, but not only that, just based on raw performance this season, Cool is looking like the man to beat, which is why he is our yellow racer tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been holding on to those yellow stripes pretty much all throughout the solos here in the very first season of the KDL, putting him in prime position to be the crowd favorite to lift up that trophy and to become the inaugural champion of the KDL. Curious to see who's going to be lifting that trophy up. Of course, now all 8 racers are on stage. The stage is primed and ready to go. Just a couple tracks between us and crowning our first champion and our first final 2 as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the very first KDL Solos Finals.
Man, you can see the excitement on the players. As you said, well, they were scared of the fireworks at first, but now it's game on for them. They're past what they're afraid of, because there's one thing for these professional gamers. They're not afraid to game on stage, especially against an opponent like HoJun, NEAL, all these decorated players. They're not afraid because once they're in the game, they just know they got to play their own game to the best.
Yeah, I mean, being able to take that title of inaugural champion in any game, in any sport, in any season, that just means you get to set the stage for all the stories moving forward. It's such an honor to be able to hold that title. And now we have Cool, NEAL, Nok, Hero, and then Luning, HoJun, SUNGBIN, and JiMin all vying for that one spot.
And as we said, it's impressive that Luning and HoJun, SUNGBIN, and JiMin, these 4 players are on the bottom 4 of our roster, because these players you could easily expect to be on the top side. That's how tough right now it is to get to the solo match finals in KDL. We have such a stacked roster of talent.
Yeah, and of course we have a number of players that could try to go for that very first double trophy as well, right? For the Guangdong Freaks and Live Sandbox. I mean, if any of those players are able to lift the trophy up at the solos tonight, they'll be able to continue to try to go for another team trophy next week for the team final. So, I mean, all sorts of records awaiting to be set here in the very first season of the Kart Rider Drift League. And honestly, while sure there were other great racers we had, especially in the round of 16 once we narrowed the field down just a bit, but looking at this top 8, it's going to be as competitive as a solos finals as we could hope for here in the very first season.
And we have such a nice mix and match of differing playstyles coming in. We have players that really love to stay in that runner position, but like we said earlier, there are players also that have been known to be like a super observer playstyle where they love the pension meta. They want to get just top consistent, top 3 finishes as much as possible, gather up the points, and make it up higher in the brackets. But this time around, we're choosing only 2 players that are going to be the highest in points. So which playstyle will be able to come out on top? That is the question.
Yeah, so just a reminder for anyone not familiar with the finals format of the solos. Normally, during all the solos races, we say, okay, the first player to reach the 50 points, that's when the race ends, and then we take a look at the standings, and it's 1, 2, 3, top 3 or top 4 that move on to the next round. However, in the solos, to make sure that we are giving as many chances for all the racers to showcase their best, we go up to 80 points. That means even if you're getting first place in every track, you have to win 8 tracks in a row, 8 tracks total, to be able to get the 80 points. It's going to be a grueling journey forward, and you can no longer just get 3 wins in a row to end the race early. This is going to be a battle to the very end. Once you reach those 80 points, you and one other racer that had the most points right behind you will be entering another 1v1 going into a best of 5. With track selection going back and forth. So we'll have to find out who those 2 are going to be. Now, Cool, he used to be known as that legend of the fall season, but now a lot of fans saying maybe he can just be a legend all year if he's able to start winning here during the winter.
And just like his message says, 2 hours to go to become the winner. You can see Cool is all about confidence tonight, but he's gonna have to prove that against the black racer NEAL. And you can see NEAL is also feeling pretty confident based on his message.
Yeah, the smiley face really just makes it NEAL's message, right? I mean, he's always trying to be as joyful and courteous while also maintaining his confidence. And then it's going to be Knock, that super observer. Wow, he's really set things up with all of his fan signs coming in from his fans, but he's just going to try to push through without looking back, and he's going to need that, right? He can't try to focus on making a calculated move. He has to get into the top 2.
Yeah, and he's got to need 2 of his own teammates from Mir and Sejong tonight. One of them is going to be Hero, and Hero is saying imagination becomes reality, because for Hero, it's been tough. He hasn't been able to shine in the solos as much as he would like compared to 2022. So now this is his chance to achieve all the glory just for himself yet again.
Yeah, I mean, Hero, again, he's one of those racers that has the experience of being a Royal Roader, and he's here to try to do it again once the playing field has been evened out. Next up in the purple stripes, just enjoying it without regrets. I mean, Luning, quite frankly, right, Sungnam Rocks, they had a bit of a shorter season than they would have wanted in the team matches, not able to push through to the very end of the playoffs. He's the only remaining member of the team here in the solo, so he's just trying to race his best, enjoy everything, and show everything he's got here in the very first season.
I love that message coming in from Luning, especially given that he is the defending champion of solos in preseason 2, and now a racer in the green. It feels like he shouldn't even be in green, and HoJun himself, you know, maybe acknowledging the fact that he's had it tough these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he didn't exactly have the easiest race. However, if you look at the stats, he does have a very consistent podium finish. He has very consistent points accumulated, which is why he was able to make it here into the final 8. And of course, our second to last racer, it's going to be SUNGBIN in the blue stripes. And just trying to say I'm doing this for World and Spear's sake as well. Of course, 2 other teammates from Guangdong Freaks that could not make it into the final standings.
We love seeing the team unison coming in, even here in the solos. And another player here, JiMin from Live Sandbox. He's the teammate of NEAL here. And he knows that he's the regular always to these solo finals. But luck has just been evading him for twice throughout the year. He just wants it once. This time is all he needs to make a fantastic year to remember.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just JiMin, NEAL, and Cool that made it to the final 8 in both preseasons. So now maybe it is JiMin's turn to try to get into that final top 2 and have another shot, or have that first shot to get the trophy. And what a trophy it would be, as it would be the very first official trophy here in the KDL Solos. Ladies and gentlemen, we are only hours away from discovering our inaugural champion of the Kart Rider Drift League, and it all begins on our very first track. Between these 8 racers, we're going to kick things off on WKC Brazil Circuit. And the race is off. Of course, as always, the first place racer will be able to select the next track, and Luning is going to cut across everyone right from the get-go, and he's even just creating more distance to try to maintain the lead for the entire race.
Luning absolutely taking the highlight away from Cool right now, just as you said. Although it's Cool's track, Luning is having such a phenomenal start that Cool. He's had so much pressure on it to catch up there. In fact, he gets a perfect angle on that, gets bumped by the player behind him, and now he's in first.
Yeah, I mean, Cool just making sure to avoid all the aggression through the regular shortcut, just takes a bit of a longer route through that grass, and he's able to maintain a spot in the top 2. Now his teammate SUNGBIN is right behind him, trying to make sure that he's able to try to contest before he podium finished. NEAL breaking through there. I mean, NEAL and Cool, these guys are very familiar with being in the top 2 places all throughout the solos, and once again, it looks like it's a race between them two.
It has absolutely been a traditional rivalry between the two as NEAL, he looks to take first place for himself now. It feels like NEAL and Cool are just off in their own world here, Will.
Yeah, and we have to make sure, take a look at the standings. Nock is still in the midfield, just waiting for an opportunity to try to break through. Meanwhile, HoJun, he's starting to creep his way up the standings, trying to just click closer and closer to the front of the pack.
And you can see right now, Luning and SUNGBIN made their way up as well. More pressure being applied to Cool and NEAL, but once again, they're able to pull apart, and this time around, the players take a safer line so that there's no big collisions happening near those tires.
Yeah, but once again, Cool continuously trying to look for an opportunity to shut off the other racers when they're going across the grass. He'll take the risk of being on the grass just a bit longer, and this time he's trying to cut off NEAL with a nice cut, getting a little bit extra boost gauge for himself as well. NEAL will find an opportunity off that draft and boost, trying to get back into first place. Hero shows up out of nowhere, now wants a piece of the pie in the podium.
It's once again right now, NEAL in the lead and Cool trying to catch up. And Cool does attempt, but NEAL with the phenomenal block there is going to allow him to keep that first place here. Cool looking for the lines, but NEAL, he has to read on his opponent right now. And it's going to be NEAL coming in first for our set 1 of solos.
Yeah, Cool knew he had one extra chance with the draft at the end. However, like you said, Peter, NEAL gets a good read, is able to just block him off for any of the angles, just making sure they're racing on the same exact line, and that way the distance just too much for Cool to try to close the gap. NEAL has a great start on the very first track, taking first place, and gets to have his choice of track for round 2.
We really thought Cool might be able to have that one, Will, because he stayed in top 3, if not top 2, throughout the whole entirety of that track. And as you put it, he took some risks in the grass to make sure that he can maintain that lead. But it seems like NEAL this time around, just being focused on his own plan really paid off.
Yeah, and NEAL actually finishing that race with 0 instant boosts as well, so not a single time needed to go for just that extra edge, really just able to focus on his own build and making sure he's not getting bumped away by any of the other racers, not having to use those instant boosts to try to adjust his course either. Just goes to show the veterancy coming into play. Of course, SUNGBIN, who was in the top 3 in the very beginning of the race, finished last, so he is now with -1 points, has to redeem himself. But now NEAL's going to take us to one of his favorite tracks. It's going to be Glacier Snowbound Slopes.
And the race kicks off in a round 2 of solos here in set number 1 as NEAL, he's looking to be in the lead once again, looking to gather all the points as much as possible, and it has paid off for him so far, but he's going to get set behind by this group of players moving forward.
Yeah, this is one of those tracks that NEAL has that victory with 0 drafts. However, this time he was trying to look for another opportunity as they entered the first section, and he's able to bump against the railing. Not going to find that opening, so now he does have to get a couple extra drafts if he wants to catch up to the rest of the pack. HoJun trying to get some extra points to his name. A lot of collisions in that first tunnel, and we're going to see a bit of an extra gap being created between the top 4 and the bottom 4.
Hero dropped down to 5th place off those collisions. That was such a big moment for him in a bad way, and you can see NEAL in the mini camera that he is set behind so much despite having such a phenomenal record in this track. It's all about Cool right now.
Yeah, I mean, Cool, sure, NEAL got the first place on track 1, but once again, he's going to be in that spotlight, in contention for first or second place, looking to make sure that he gets into at least the final 1v1. Still a long way to go, though. We are going to 80 points here in the final 8 of the solo racers here of the KDL.
As we take the lift, we're going to see Cool in the lead once again, followed up by HoJun and Luning. The thing is, Cool, he manages to block HoJun out off that collision into the wall. That was such a cool maneuver by Cool himself, and now it's Luning fighting for that first spot against Cool here, as Cool once again shows off why he's great at blocking when he's in that first place.
Yeah, when it comes to the solos, Cool, I mean, he's just able to play such good defense, and he's able to showcase why he's been one of those favorites, the regulars that comes into the finals, that goes to the 1v1s, continue to make sure he's not giving Luning a chance. We always talk about how narrow this track is in the first half. It's very risky. Now going to the cave, we saw tons of collisions. Oh, early on, SUNGBIN, he's going to take a bit of a risk, but he's going to make sure that he's not colliding and gets that opportunity to close the gap and even take over first place.
My goodness, that line from SUNGBIN was so beautiful. Now he is firmly in first place, but Cool applying so much aggression towards SUNGBIN right now, and Cool is constantly maneuvering to the left and right field. He's taking that right build this time, and Cool is in the lead once again.
Yeah, he gets the draft right off of the jump, and he's trying to find that opportunity. However, just a couple extra cuts, that means he loses the speed. SUNGBIN's able to hold on the first for now. He's trying to block off Luning, and he will be able to maintain it. SUNGBIN climbing all the way back up to the top of the leaderboard, making sure he gets 10 points to his name.
That was a huge turnaround for SUNGBIN there, because in round 1, SUNGBIN actually got 8th place, so that was -1 point for him. But now, with 10 points in the bag, he's going to be up at 9 points, which is pretty healthily up in the rankings compared to before.
Yeah, absolutely big redemption here for SUNGBIN before things got out of hand. So far, the points are going to be pretty close. We should take a note. NEAL, it was his track of choice, and he falls down all the way to 8th place after a rough start.
Yeah, that is really, really rough for NEAL there. Fortunately, he did pick up the 10 points in round number 1, so he's still going to be healthily at 9 points, tied for 3rd with SUNGBIN. It seems really competitive right now based on just the points alone, William. I can't say who's going to get a big lead anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Now, SUNGBIN, he's always favored a lot of these difficult tracks rather than the field tracks, right? So things like Zigzag Timberland, Winding Slopes, those are his favorites. You know, even Extreme Stadium. He's going to try to avoid the WKC tracks for sure. We'll see which one it is this time. He's going to kick things off here in round 3 with Mind Winding Slopes. We'll see if SUNGBIN can get another first place to his name here in round 3. This time it is SUNGBIN's track of choice, and SUNGBIN just says, you know what, I'm not going to try to go for any of these aggressive cuts early on. We'll just let the rest of the crowd figure it out. Doesn't want to get into too many collisions before entering the first narrow passageway, and that secures him the top 2 spots for now.
It has definitely paid off for SUNGBIN here, as Luning is looking to be in the spotlight this time along with JiMin. It feels like JiMin, it's been a while since we've seen him up in the top 2, so we're going to see whether he can keep that up. We see Cool all the way down in 8th place right now. That's not where he wants to be.
Oh, and Knock, I mean, barely recovering, not dropping off the track. However, he's going to lose so much speed just to try to stay alive.
Ooh.
And we see a couple extra collisions there. Now we see players being pushed out. JiMin no longer in the podium finish for the time being. Luning, however, this gives him a bit more breathing room as we enter the caves.
Yeah, these caves can be really tricky to maneuver around. We've seen so many times players just colliding into the wall and losing all momentum, but it didn't happen now. Luning, he's having such a big lead. We're likely going to see some spins out of NEAL and Hero to catch up.
Yeah, and Hero, he was trying to find an opportunity off of that draft, and NEAL gets a good read, blocks him out. HoJun finds that opportunity to cut across several of those racers, and NEAL with a clean spin turn. One of the cleanest we've seen. He avoids all the collisions from his opponents and the walls themselves. HoJun, can he at least get a podium finish as NEAL and Luning, they will enter 1-2, and HoJun in 3.
Man, that spin from NEAL was so phenomenal. Luning went for the exact same thing, but NEAL just executed it so much better. And you can see the distance he was able to build off that. NEAL picking up his 2nd first place finish of the tracks tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that puts him healthily back in first place. Luning with quite a few points to his name as well. 7 should put him solidly into 2nd place. But HoJun, he's trying to get right back into the running with a nice 3rd place finish. Gets 5 points to his name.
Yeah, definitely, and now we can look at the standings. NEAL, Luning, and Cool are really starting to build a significant lead off the rest of the group. And to remind you guys, the viewers, it's only the top 2 that moves on to the Set 2 of the Solos Finals. So we're seeing 3 players highly in contention for that spot right now.
Yeah, here's the thing. While we may not have an opportunity to end the race early with the 3 consecutive wins, as you mentioned, Peter, you have to be in the top 2. So if the points start to gap, the point gap gets too big, it's going to be a little rough. As we take a look at our next track, it's going to be Mexico Touring Rally.
The race kicks off in NEAL's 2nd choice of track tonight, as we are now here in Mexico Touring Rally, and we're seeing Luning going for that phenomenal start once again. I feel like Luning has found a lot of these really great early leads.
Yeah, Luning and Cool, these are the racers that have constantly been in these podium finishes, right? Oh, and Cool just edges everyone out as they have to play a little bit safer as they're bumping against each other on that turn. Cool continue to maintain first place for the time being. Everyone cuts across the gap. NEAL this time not falling too far behind on his track of choice.
It feels to me right now that Cool just has been able to find so much aggressive plays today, but that is not the play he wanted. He jumped straight into the wall, and now he's kind of gone from the race for the time being.
Yeah, he cut that corner a little too early and just bumped right onto that incline, flies right into the branches of the tree. So he is out for the time being. NEAL still healthily in podium finish range. SUNGBIN trying to get back into it. and HoJun. I mean, there is a bit of a point gap right now between the top 3 and the rest, but if HoJun can get into 1 or 2, then he should get enough points to get into contention for the top 2.
And for the time being though, SUNGBIN finds excellent blocks on HoJun right now, constantly keeping him in check, but it does allow Luning to get that room he wanted. Hero and NEAL coming up as well.
Yeah, and HoJun gets pushed out just a bit.
Oh,
Luning
Luning.
going to lose that control. Somebody wants to cut off HoJun. HoJun, he's playing very aggressive, but he has to remember just second place could be good enough. No, that risk is not going to...
HoJun!
What in the world was that, HoJun? He's going to be able to get right back into the lead, but he loses too much speed as we see SUNGBIN holding on to this top speed all the way to the end, finishing in first place.
That could have been a sick, crazy play from HoJun right there, but SUNGBIN, this is the play style that we love SUNGBIN for. He's always able to stay calm, collected, and consistent. He picks up his second first place finish of the night. It's NEAL and SUNGBIN just exchanging hands right now, getting that first place spot.
Yeah, cool. He was able to climb all the way back up to 5th place, so he still gets a couple extra points, maintains a spot in the double digits with 18. And we're going to see, as we take a look at the overall standings, NEAL continue to stay ahead, but SUNGBIN and Cool continuing to try to catch up in second place.
That's the crazy part. SUNGBIN, he's picked up 2 first place finishes, but Cool, he's able to stay on par with him in the overall point standings, really just showing how on form Cool is today. It seems like nothing is really going to set him behind. We've already seen a big collision here in the Mexico Touring Rally, but he's able to keep bouncing back, so we'll see if he's able to pull that off here in SUNGBIN's choice of track for a round 5 in Forest Zigzag Timberland.
And track 5 begins. Now SUNGBIN, just like NEAL on the first track of choice he had, he fell right back into 8th place, getting -1 points, losing a point off that race. We'll see if he's able to continue the momentum this time here on Zigzag Timberland.
And once again, the story, it's between NEAL, Luning, and Cool here, 3 players that are absolutely topping our charts right now in terms of point standings. In fact, NEAL is going to take a huge collision for himself there. Now that gives so much room for Luning, Cool, and JiMin.
Yeah, JiMin, he's only got 8 points to his name. He has a lot of catching up to do, and if he's able to get first place, that would be a good start for him. Of course, we are going all the way up to 80, so it is quite a long journey still awaiting us here in the finals.
Yeah, and you can see Cool instantly going for that left cut right there to try to block off the players from catching up. Once again, Cool, he's doing it every time. He's staying on the right path, and he just cuts into the left field. These blocks are crazy, Will.
Yeah, I mean, the way Cool is able to play defense in solos, it's actually not so much going for these direct blocks, but it's actually forcing these errors from his opponents, right? I mean, Luning eventually has to bump against the track, falls quite far behind now into 7th place. Now SUNGBIN finding an opportunity, getting back into podium range, contending for that first spot. Of course, all of them trying to get their boost gauges back up with the cuts here on the straight path as well.
Now it's all about Hero and SUNGBIN up in that top 2. You can see Nock and Luning actually all the way down in 7th and 8th. So Luning definitely got to do some catch up because he was a strong contender. Now you can see NEAL also gunning for that spot. Gets a beautiful collision onto SUNGBIN there as well.
I mean, suddenly a lot of racers' destinies are in NEAL's hands. While it is all the way up to 80 points, NEAL continuing to try to widen the gap right now as he holds on to first place. Cool doesn't want to let that happen, especially because Cool and SUNGBIN currently tied at 18 points. You want to make sure you're able to get a bit of a bigger lead as you enter perhaps the later half of the solo races here in the final 8. HoJun now going for his own opportunity as well here in the very last parts of lap 2.
But NEAL was able to block him off just in time there as NEAL continuing to keep that first place under his belt. Cool, he's looking for the angles right now, and that was an insane line taken by Cool.
My
Followed up
gosh.
by another insane block. Cool is just the coolest player we have in the KDL right now.
Ice cold, absolutely. Look at the distance he's able to create off of the way he cuts on the inner corner of the very first hairpin. And then he's able to just block off NEAL, forcing NEAL to lose even more speed. Ice cold, absolutely. It's going to be Cool. Now getting his spot in first place, and what a pose. I mean, this is Cool incarnate right there.
Yeah, that animation just goes so well with this name and performance tonight. Not only tonight, for the whole year, you can say Cool has been having such a amazing debut here in the KDL season, and he's going to pick up those 10 points, goes up to 28 points. Now, against SUNGBIN, he's up 10 points. It feels like NEAL and Cool, these two are just racing off to build the points as fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, the gap has widened quite a bit. You're absolutely going to need a first place finish if you want want to have your name back in the running once again. Curious to see where Cool takes us. It's going to be his first choice we've had since we began the tracks tonight. The first time he's able to get that first place finish, and he's going to take us to an old-time favorite. It's going to be World Tour Terracotta Twister here for track number 6.
And the race kicks off, and Cool's choice of track here for round 5, as this is his first place finish of tonight, and I'm really surprised by his choice in Terracotta Twister. I feel like that speaks so much volume in his confidence.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just going to say, you know, regardless of whether other racers like it or not, this is one of my favorite tracks. I'm very confident on it. We'll see what he can do. Now, Hero gets a bit of a bump as he's trying to cut too close to the corner. Loses quite a bit of speed, allows Cool to find an opportunity to get into the top 4. SUNGBIN, good recovery there as we enter the tubes, and SUNGBIN tries to push Cool out of the races, but Cool is able to stabilize.
Oh my God!
And he absolutely demolishes HoJun on that defense, and more racers as well. How does he continue to do it track after track?
Man, Cool's form is just looking so scary here as he refuses to allow even SUNGBIN to pass after demolishing all his opponents one by one. You can see SUNGBIN and Hero, the only players that managed to dodge the menace of Cool so far.
Yeah, I mean, HoJun and Luning not even seen here on the mini-map, so they are pretty much out of the races, we have to imagine. Now NEAL still finding an opportunity. Good draft. He finds the opportunity. Oh, good spin turn for recovery, though, and in fact, blocks off Knock, is able to maintain his distance to get right back into draft range.
NEAL is pulling out these crazy NEAL builds that we know him for so well right now, and it has paid off for him, but not enough as we see JiMin, Cool, and Hero in the top 3 as we enter the tomb section.
Yeah, Cool's looking for another opportunity to just look at the way he's setting up. He's trying to make sure he's able to get enough distance, and he finds it in between both racers once again. But Hero, good recovery. He has to lose a bit of speed to make sure he finds his build. That allows Cool to catch up. The draft comes in, and that gives him enough top speed. Cool back in first place once again. Can Hero cut him off? He's able to shove him out, but NEAL says thank you very much for the scuffles, and NEAL will be crossing the finish line first.
Man, that is third 10 points for NEAL in the back for him tonight. I feel like NEAL's form is absolutely insane. He is the leading player of the group by point standings now, picking up 41 points in total. It's going to be really hard to catch up to him as he's always halfway there to the 80-point mark.
Yeah, you gotta imagine for a lot of these racers now, the timer is set. It's all down to NEAL. How close does he get to the 80 points? And then it's a matter of who's in second place right after. Currently, Cool's still holding on to it. Even though he only got 4 points this race on Terracotta Twister, he has 32, still a healthy 9 points ahead of Hero. But Hero and Luning, they are absolutely still in strong contention to try to take over into the top 2.
They are definitely by the points alone, but based on the form that Cool has shown, constantly contesting that top 2 and also making the most proactive plays that have led to positive results, you gotta wonder, when will Cool start to crumble? And we will find that out as we now move on to round 7, picked by NEAL here in the Mine Gold Rush.
NEAL once again with another first place finish. He's trying to repeat it, chain it into a couple more, get to that 80 points early because once again, he's the one who got 80 points in both preseason's finals. However, then he lost out in the 1v1 best of 5. He doesn't want to make the same mistake tonight.
Definitely NEAL is the player that we expect to see moving on to set 2 based on his points as well as his standings. It's NEAL versus Cool again. This might be a preview into the finals at this point because these 2 players are constantly in the top.
Yeah, NEAL just holding a bit too close to that corner the entire time. Makes way for Cool to take the outer line. Goes into first place for the time being. But NEAL, he still has plenty of opportunities as we still have another lap awaiting us here on Mine Gold Rush. Cool with a bit of distance. HoJun, I mean, he's always been able to kind of veer his head into the podium towards the end of each first lap, but then something happens, a crash, a collision, or maybe some other form of drafts coming in from right behind him like we see right now with Knock and SUNGBIN, and then he's out of the picture again.
Yeah, that's going to be a crazy turnaround of events here as now JiMin and HoJun leading the pack here in 1-2, and we can see NEAL, he's all the way back in 6th place, but I'm sure he'll be able to catch up real soon. His lines are looking extra sharp right now.
Oh, NEAL's playing aggressively. He wants to take the most inner line to try to take over everyone, but no one's giving him that space, so he has to wait another draft opportunity. Cool, meanwhile, is able to find that as they get back into the straightaway, entering the next cave. Now another U-turn awaits them as they exit. We'll see Cool, is he able to play defense here? He's able to block out Knock, and that means no one else is able to pass him yet either. They're now going to go into the teleporter, and then only 2 more turns awaiting them. SUNGBIN's going to cut him off on the inner line, gets the block onto Cool as well, and Cool actually collides into other racers, gets bounced all the way back to 5th place. Meanwhile, SUNGBIN will be finishing in first.
Already entering that portal, I saw SUNGBIN. He was trying to take a completely different angle from Cool there and try to cut across, and that's exactly what he did as soon as he came out of that portal. And that is going to be the 3rd first place finish for SUNGBIN of the night. He is leading along with NEAL. They both have 3 first place each.
Yeah, SUNGBIN, that puts him right back into contention into the top 2. Sets a new record for Mine Gold Rush as well, taking over Liv Sandbox's Byung-Soo's record here in the very first season of the KDL. Take a look at the standings. NEAL still with 45, Cool 35. But SUNGBIN, he's caught up a lot more now with only 6 points behind Cool.
Yeah, SUNGBIN, he has picked up a lot of first places, but I feel like in the other tracks that he's played, he ranked a bit too low, which is why he is still behind Cool despite leading in that first place finishes. So it feels like the different strategies are coming in today where it's kind of reversed. I feel like Cool is having such a pension meta playstyle today while maintaining top 3, and now we'll see if he can make that happen here in SUNGBIN's choice of track in Glacier Extreme Stadium. And the round 8 of our solos finals here kicks off in the choice of track from SUNGBIN. As we see SUNGBIN having a bit of a slower start compared to his other races, it is once again Cool in the front. Yeah, this seems to be SUNGBIN's idea here tonight for the final 8, is just to let everyone else deal with the chaos as NEAL gets bumped back a little bit there, getting blocked off by one of his opponents, and then he's able to just maintain his boost and the drafts. So SUNGBIN trying to rely on the drafts to catch up to the rest of the pack. However, that does mean he has to rely on his opponents as well to try to get back into podium standing. Oh. Cool, hit the wall quite a bit hard there. It feels like he didn't get the angle he really wanted. So now he's going to be all the way back in 7th place, and it's Hero and NEAL really brawling it out right now. Hero took a big collision from NEAL there, but a beautiful recovery nonetheless. Yeah, Hero's able to recover for the time being, and he gets that boost just in time to make sure he's blocking off anyone off of that jump. Now it comes down to the cuts, and Luning says, all right, I'm just going to go for this risk-reward play. Goes for 0 cuts, gets that extra boost, just to try to get into first place, relies on refilling the boost gauge here on the curves. Ooh, and it's interesting to keep in mind that NEAL also took a pretty big collision for himself there, now falling behind even Cool in 7th place. And given that Cool and NEAL are the top 2 leaders of our board right now, this is chance for other players to catch up. Yeah, Luning, we'll see if that gamble paid off as they entered lap 2. He's still in contention for first place. Now Hero holding on to first for the time being, but Luning has all the opportunities right now. He's actually going to find an opportunity. Can he cut off Hero? Yes, he does. Now he needs to set up once again for the hairpins. Hero's trying to cut him off on the outer line. Hero gets the better build going into the hairpins right off the get-go. Gets a block onto Luning as well. Oh. But Cool is going to pressure Hero enough. Hero has to take an extra jump, loses that speed. HoJun finds an opportunity to miss the chaos. Cool. And Cool, he's just going to get a better top speed off of the landing and crosses the finish line first. Man, it felt like every single player there was just going for the Hail Mary play, and they gave it all with their boost coming in. We saw HoJun come in, and then Cool somehow off that jump, as you said, Will, he just manages to make that landing so much better than everyone else, picking up his 2nd first place finish tonight. Yeah, I mean, Hero, I think, was just so concerned about playing defense there that on that last jump of the hairpins, he takes a corner a little too close and barely makes it onto the landing, which means he gets another extra bump in the air. And that was all the speed that Cool needed to make sure that he was able to climb right back into first place. Now only 4 points away from NEAL. NEAL slowed down quite a bit. Still 31 points to go to the 80 to finish this set number 1 before we go into the final 1v1. Yeah, it seems like right now, based on the points, Cool and NEAL still being the leader of our board as usual. And we are seeing a catch-up happening from the rest of the players, however, so it could be anyone's game still. Yeah, I mean, 31 points still. If NEAL's not able to get those first-place finishes, we have quite the distance. Same with Cool. And that means, you know, if other racers are able to get those first places, maybe chain it into 2 or 3, that they should be able to catch up right away as we take a look at our next track selected by Cool himself. It's going to be WKC Shanghai Circuit.
Cool racing with the yellow stripes, only 4 points behind NEAL, who's going to be the one to reach the 80 points first, get that top seed going into the final 1v1.
You see NEAL really leading right now, as you saw the aggressive turns the players took there, and NEAL maneuvered that beautifully, and you can see Knock in the first place. It's been a while since we've seen him contest these spots.
Yeah, Knock, he's been quiet all throughout, but we keep mentioning it, right? This time it's only 2 players that move on to set 2 into that 1v1. You can't just be that super observer anymore. You have to make impact on the podium at some point, and Knock finds out that, you know, he doesn't have much time left. This has to be his opportunity.
And Luning is going to take a unfortunate end on his line there for himself, falls into 7th place. Right now it's once again NEAL and Cool in the front, up with Nog. And anytime we've seen NEAL and Cool up in front, every other player pretty much fell out of the main camera view eventually, as NEAL, he does it again here. He executes him.
Yeah, the pressure onto Nog, and Nog just tries to go for an extra aggressive block there. Tries to sweep NEAL into the wall. Ends up costing him all his speed, and now once again, like you mentioned, Peter, it's a race between NEAL and Cool, but the rest of the pack's still right behind them. I mean, a couple drafts and anything could happen here on Shanghai Circuit.
I love that little boop from Cool onto JiMin there. It actually changed the pace so much. Once again, JiMin, he gets completely blocked out of his path, and he's going to be locked into that 8th place for the time being. It's NEAL gunning for that top spot with SUNGBIN and Luning.
Yeah, Luning does have an opportunity with the draft, but SUNGBIN's going to get one of his own as well, and that should be a safe 1-2 finish for NEAL and SUNGBIN. NEAL with yet another 10 points to his name, bringing him all the way up to 59.
That's 10 points for him in the race so far, and besides those 40 points he gained just from the first place as well, he's been so consistent throughout the whole solos tonight that, as you said, he is the leading player of our standings right now, and it doesn't feel like that's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's now only 21 points away. We talked about how, you know, maybe we have some more time if he doesn't get those first place finishes. However, he just says, well, what if I just get those first place finishes and try to get all the way up to the 80 points? He did it in both preseasons. Can he do it here in the very first official season of the KDL?
Well, I mean, I gotta say, this is quite the turnaround from NEAL so far. The way for him coming up in the solos finals was easy because for the first time, he made it through the winner's group, but we've had some doubts, but NEAL is shutting out all those doubts out tonight as he takes us for round 10 into World Tour Miami Drive as his own track choice. And the race kicks off, and to remind everyone of the point standings right now, we do have NEAL and Cool firmly in the lead. SUNGBIN and Hero are the only 2 players that can really contend that for the time being.
Yeah, and even then, they're going to need a first place finish of their own if they want to try to catch up in time. So it looks to be a bit of a tough ordeal, but guess what? Maybe the race gets extended a bit if NEAL gets bumped all the way down into 8th place.
Yeah, that was a huge collision into that tree there, and you can see Nog, JiMin, and HoJun being the top 3 player, Cool and NEAL nowhere in sight. So it is a chance now for the other players to finally catch up. As you can see, Cool, he's so scary, just barely in that camera view.
Yeah, Cool is just trying to vie for that one more opportunity, and he finds it off of a draft and a boost. He even pushes Luning out of the build he wants.
Look at those lines.
Yeah, just pushes him out into the outer line, gets his own as well, blocks off Hero. Cool, he is just able to maintain composure in any type of scenario. Now gets bumped back a little bit, but hey, we saw it happen in lap 1. He can do it again in lap 2.
He certainly can. That is the fear that Cool is putting into the hearts of all our players here tonight, as it's Luning and Hero gunning for that top 2 spots. Knock and Cool following not too far behind. And this is a map where if you can keep on to the lead and don't make any mistakes, it is hard for the opponents to catch up. But Cool, he's just making that logic not work tonight somehow.
Yeah, Cool is just constantly finding this opportunity. This is not the picture that Luning wanted. He just wanted a clean first place finish to try to catch up in points. But if Cool continues to pressure him, even if he gets first place, it's not exactly the ideal scenario. And once again, the pressure gets to him. Cool just making all these forced errors happen from his opponents, trying to push Hero into the food trucks. Hero's not going to fall for that trap this time.
Cool is just playing so out of his mind, like you said, Will. He just goes for these subtle taps into players, and it has done so much for him as he went for on Hero there once again. Now fighting it off with NEAL. Cool is in the lead, blocks out NEAL from his line, and Cool is looking to finish first, but Hero comes in from the outer, and Hero is looking to take that first place for himself. The first place finish for Hero tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Hero, it almost looked like he was setting up for a straight boost there just to knock Cool out of the race if it was a team match, but it is solos, so he's able to still just get his turn and his drift right in time to maintain his speed, and he will be entering in first place for the first time here in the final 8 of the KDL solos.
That is going to boost him up to around 32 points, I believe. So 30 points is kind of like the cutoff we are seeing that you need to be at right now if you want to catch up to Hero and NEAL. In fact, no, actually, my bad. Hero actually at 44 points, so he has an even better shot, but he still does need another first place if he wants to try to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a little ways to go. However, this does buy them a little extra time, right? NEAL not in the podiums right now, not getting those extra points. That is going to extend the race just a bit as we take a look at Hero's next choice. This time it is going to be Village Boom Hill Tunnel. The first time for Hero to get his track choice. Can he chain it into a couple more? That would give him that opportunity to try to catch up to the 56 and 59 points of Cool and NEAL.
Well, Hero has certainly had a good start for himself there, and now just fighting it out with Nock alone in a 1v1 battle as NEAL and Cool. You saw NEAL kind of trying to go into the line of Cool, testing him a bit, but Cool has an excellent read on his opponent as they just completely knock HoJun out of contention.
Yeah, NEAL's still able to catch right back up with another draft and boost coming in time, and Hero holding on to that first place. We talk about this track a lot, how if you're in first place, generally it is a bit easier to play defense. However, I mean, if you start to ping pong around these curves here, that spells absolute trouble, and Hero's just trying to create that distance to make sure he's not forced to make those mistakes.
Hero has been doing a phenomenal job so far of having a read on Nock, and Nock finally manages to pass through him as we see every player take the rail build, and NEAL gets, or Hero rather, or Cool, every single player gets so much boost off that.
Yeah, and Cool just trying to maintain the speed a bit better, but Hero says, I'm just going to go for the extra boost in trade, and this should mean that Hero, unless he makes a crucial mistake, he should be able to finish in first place, chaining another first place finish here to get another 10 points, as Cool will follow up in second place.
That is the second first place for Hero, and he's done it consecutively. It doesn't matter because there is no 3 consecutive win places, but it says a lot about the form that Hero is showing right now. We mentioned earlier that Hero is the player that can really catch up to the rest of the pack. Now off those 10 points, at 54 points, he's becoming a real threat.
Yeah, and Cool just finding a different angle there to jump across the entire stream, just absolutely foregoing the bridge at all. Make sure he gets a better top speed on that landing, so Cool is able to catch up all the way to second place, but Hero, just good defense around that spin turn. And now look at the point difference, 64-63. However, Hero close at 54. Cool, if anything, the pressure's kind of on him to make sure he maintains a spot in the top 2.
And you can see on the face of Hero right now, he is feeling really nervous despite being able to get his 3rd track choice in the upcoming round 12 of our solos finals tonight. Meanwhile, for Cool, it's all about game on as we have so many phenomenal racers here looking to gun for that first place and get into that set 2 as we go to Factory Facility 5. And the race kicks off here for Hero's choice of track yet again. As we see Hero, he is going to get blocked off by the group of players, so he's going to have to take this one a bit slow and steady. We're seeing Cool and NEAL. They are having a phenomenal start right off the bat.
Oh, that's not the picture any of the other racers want to see, with both of them at 63-64. I mean, if either of them get first place, you can pretty much assume that we are going to wrap things up in the next track, as both of them have always been in contention.
Oh my,
NEAL! No! NEAL, he fails his own NEAL build and falls into the River of Doom as he now loses all that speed, all that distance. Cool now healthily in first place.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate result for NEAL there. If it worked out, it would have been so great, but now Cool and HoJun, they're in contention of that top spot. JiMin and Luning also looking for it. There's a lot of sharp turns on Factory Facility 5, so we'll have to see if any executions come out from our players.
I mean, this could spell a lot of trouble for NEAL, because not only is Cool absolutely going to take him over in total point standings, but that means that he might be in trouble if Hero's able to climb just a bit more in the standings in the future tracks. NEAL may be pushed out of the top 2 as well. We'll have to wait and see. Cool now just trying to get sure that he gets that first place. If he does so, He really just needs a top 2 finish in the next track to be able to finish the very first set here in the very first final lane of the KDL. Only 300 meters left. Cool, enough distance. No one able to catch up with that draft, and he will be crossing the finish line first.
Man, what a great performance from Cool yet again. It was all about Cool versus NEAL in that beginning portion of the track, but as soon as NEAL fell out, it felt like Cool knew that his only game plan now was to simply focus on his build. Earlier, we've seen him constantly contest other players' lines and make sure that they feel the aggression at all times, but this time, we haven't seen that. Cool just made sure to stay out of the draft range.
Yeah, just absolutely good racing. Another record here, beating out NEAL's record himself. Cool, setting another record to his name, getting those 10 points, taking over the standings towards the 80 as we near the end of the first set of the solo final. 73 points, a first or second place finish for Cool in the next track means set 1 is over and we find out who our 2 finalists will be for the 1v1.
Fortunately for NEAL, he is 9 points ahead of Hero, so there is a pretty good chance of NEAL making it to that set number 2, even if Cool ends off for solo set 1 here in round 13. So we'll have to keep our eyes on where Cool finishes, NEAL finishes, Hero finishes, as we move into World Tour Terracotta Twister, a track brought to us by Cool the man himself.
Cool once again selecting Terracotta Twister as we have gone through every single track. We are back into our second rotation. Goes back to his old favorite here. Oh, Cool. Just good recovery off of that bump right now. Cool knows he just wants to finish this first set. Make sure he gets ready for the 1v1. And NEAL, right now, all eyes on him. Can he just maintain enough points ahead of Hero to secure the top 2?
So in fact, NEAL might actually want Cool to finish off the race because that will guarantee him a spot in that set too. As we're seeing right now, Luning, he is holding on to that first place pretty firmly. If Cool gets third place, there will be another round to be played.
Yeah, I mean, this is quite a few scenarios, and Hero just doesn't want to fall off the track, but that does mean he loses all the possible speed there in the tube section, but he finds an opportunity as everyone else plays it safe around the last corner. Now Hero climbing forward quite far ahead. NEAL, the pressure's starting to get to him if he's not able to get enough points. If he falls into 7th or 8th place, gets 0 or even -1 points, Hero suddenly in contention for the top 2.
That is absolutely the game plan for Hero right now. He's cooked up some masterpiece of a build as he managed to recover all the way up into 2nd place. Now Luning is leading firmly, SUNGBIN and HoJun following up. Cool and NEAL nowhere inside. This is the ideal story for Hero here.
Yeah, absolutely. He might even be able to take his own destiny into his hands. Now Cool still trying to get into just 2nd place, but there's quite a few racers ahead of him. HoJun and SUNGBIN blocking that way. Luning, he's trying to find an aggressive part to pressure Hero, but Hero doesn't fall for it. Sets himself up nicely, but HoJun with a nice jump across the gap suddenly rises right back into 1st place.
Oh, SUNGBIN gets completely booped off.
No,
Luning
Hero
also completely goes out, and Hero as well. What's going on, Will?
Oh no, I mean, all of them were trying to avoid each other as well along those collisions, and Hero now, all that dream has just been dashed. Cool, he should be able to at least get 2nd place, and that means, ladies and gentlemen, the first set is over. Cool reaches 80 points on the dot, and it should be Cool and NEAL going in to the final 1v1.
Man, Cool, he's able to pull it off. Even in the end there, I feel like there's not been a single round where Cool has had a really bad ending to his race. Absolutely well-deserved finish there from Cool, and as you said, Will, NEAL has built up so much of a point lead over his consistent performance throughout the whole race that he may be our 2nd player.
Yeah, and HoJun, I mean, finally gets that 1st place at the very end, but he still had too many points to go. Falls short at 5th place, tied with Luning with 35. And Hero, a huge mistake there in the very last part of lap 2 of Terracotta Twister. Puts him solidly in 55 points. Not able to enter the top 2. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a rematch of pre-season 1. The finalists, the 2 finalists will be Cool and NEAL. However, this time it has been swapped. This time it's Cool who takes the 80 points.
Yeah, Cool has had the best season so far, I feel like, all year long, the form that he's shown. But not only that, his opponent, NEAL, I think this is the best we've seen him in the official Kart Rider season right now. So I feel like this is a well-matched round that we will be heading into.
Yeah, very curious. I mean, both of these guys, they play a very heavy mental game when it comes to these 1v1s, trying to get a read on each other, trying to force these errors. Now, I would say, you know, Cool leans a bit more towards the one who's trying to put the pressure on and make these forced errors happen. However, NEAL, he's the one who's actually getting good reads on his opponents and finding that one opportunity to take over at the end of the race. We've seen it countless times in the solos. We've seen it many times in ace matches. Curious to see how things pan out, but couldn't ask for a better rematch here in the 1v1 for the very first finals of the KDL.
Yeah, this is the best story that we could have if you're a fan of the preseason 1 matchup we've had, where Cool was able to 3-0 NEAL in that round 2, the set 2 of the solo finals. And NEAL, he definitely wants to turn things around, right? He cannot allow his opponent to get a 3-0 on him again, and it's so great that he has a chance for redemption. Also, this is the 3rd time that NEAL has made it to the final set 2 of solos.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the big part, right? I mean, this is your 3rd time going into that 1v1, your 3rd time being one step away from holding that title, and this is the one that's going to matter. This is the one that goes into the record books, the history books of KDL as the very first season. You will be the inaugural champion if NEAL can flip the books today. All those preseasons, it was just practice up to this point.
Yeah, NEAL definitely a player that we would believe in, but I feel like, honestly, both players are just in top form right now that I can't say one is clearly above the other. It's going to be like a masterpiece, like watching 2 different players who are at the top of their own field, 2 different play styles coming in together for that rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we really could hope for, as quite frankly in preseason 1, that was the disappointment, but now we have an interview ready for us with the 2 finalists, and we're going to have Peter give us the translations with Cool and NEAL.
Yeah, Cool, you've had such a great match today, getting to that 80 points first, and you proved your season once again. How do you feel? Well, first of all, to make it to the finals, I've shown a lot of performance by getting that first place a lot, but this time I've given up on that first place consecutively and just going for the points, and I feel like it went so well, so I'm really happy. You showed such a great form this season that it might have been a bit pressuring to keep that up, but I'm glad you were not pressured by that at all. And next up, I want to ask you, NEAL, along with preseason 1 and 2, you made it to the final top 2 once again, but players like Hero and SUNGBIN, there were players like that that really made it competitive. How do you feel about making it up here?
之后，NEAL第3次走进了最后的单挑环节，但这次 Hero 选手和成斌选手你的分数差距是非常相似的，所以请讲一下晋级到最后环节的想法吧。
其实大概跑5、6张图的时候，我就知道我会晋级了，所以我采取了一些比较表演性质的跑法，能晋级也很开心。
사실
to be honest, out of the 5, 6 tracks when they were done, I felt already at that point that I could make it to that top 2. So I went for a bit of performance plays once I felt I was safe in my standing. But now that I'm up here, I'm going to try my best. Well, it's your veterancy showing up that you're able to pull out these performance plays in such a high pressure stage as well. And now next up, I want to ask you, Cool, it was a competitive field of solos, but now once again your opponent is NEAL, and you guys know each other so well. And recently, based on what NEAL was able to show off in the solos, I feel like you might be feeling a bit confident against NEAL tonight. How do you feel? Well, up until preseason 1 and 2, he made it to that top 2 in both the solos finals. So watching those moments, I learned a lot from NEAL, and I also thought into how I should maneuver around 1v1ing NEAL, and I'm still thinking about that right now. Cool, you are showing a lot of respect for your opponent here, and along with NEAL, I am sure that NEAL respects Cool as a player as well. Well, how do you feel knowing about Cool? You know him well, but this season he's just so much stronger, it feels like. How did you prepare to fight against him?
어, 我会把对手当成我自己，而不是载荷选手，因为先这一段。
Against all opponents,
well, I think I'm the biggest opponent of
一直以来
myself.
我都可以做到90分、95分，但是一直做不到100分。这一次我会更加努力， 做到最好。
Well, to be honest, as for a review on myself, I feel like I judge myself around 90 to 95 points out of 100 because I feel like I haven't been able to show 100% of my all, but this time around I'll try my best to get in my top form, maybe getting the 100. Well, I can relate really to your situation there, Neil. And I have one last question for you here, Cool. Last season, it was just 1 point difference that stopped you from making it to the top 2 finalists of solos. But this time, you were able to make it here without much trouble.
경기 시작 전에 각오해도
How do you feel?
우승 2시간 전이라고. 이제 우승까지 1시간이 남은 것 같습니다.
Well, I feel like I said earlier that there's only 2 hours left before I win. Now I think there's only 1 hour left till I win. I wish you the best on that, Cool. And I have one last question for you, Neil. You were the runner-up twice in the solos and the runner-up for the team twice. That was your beginning of KDL. I want to hear how you're prepared for this final season.
我相信这是为了通往决赛冠军的一条必备之路。最后，请讲一下你的决心吧。
제호 선수는 이번 우승은 제가 맡겠습니다.
This victory I will take for myself. Neil showed such a clear message to his opponent, Cool, here today. We'll be looking forward to an exciting matchup between them. And now the match begins to find out the grand winner, the champion of the solos finals.